we read your book, Tales from Michigan State.
We both read it cover to cover, and we loved it. So,
all right.
Now that being said, though, Greg, I'm admittedly a Michigan fan my whole life, and I'll tell you what, reading this book cover to cover, you fall in love with Michigan State basketball. And as a Michigan fan, that's frustrating. And if my family listens to this episode, they're probably going to excoriate me, but, whatever. That being said, you're probably wondering why 14 years after you publish this book that we're having you on. One of the reasons, obviously, is it's March Madness is coming up. We're coming to a climax in that. And Michigan State basketball is synonymous with this time of the year. They're a blue blood program, and I was telling Hoffman off the air here that doesn't happen. The Michigan State that we think of, like our generation and younger, doesn't happen without the 79 national championship team, your team. And so that's why we thought it was really appropriate to have you on. So I'll get right into it. How were you first, if you could explain, how were you first approached by Michigan State in the recruiting process?
I was playing, I was studying and playing basketball at Henry Ford High School in Detroit. And it was my senior year in December of 1974. And we were scheduled to play in a basketball tournament, Christmas tournament, at Northwestern High School. Northwestern was one of the preeminent sports programs, regardless of sport, basketball, football, baseball. They were one of the best in the city of Detroit at that time. And they had a number of fine athletes on their basketball team, but one in particular was Alan Hardy, who was a 6'5" swingman, who was rated as one of the best players, not just in the state of Michigan, but one of the best players in the country. And we were playing them in the opening round of their Christmas tournament, and Michigan State and a whole bunch of other schools were at the game to recruit Alan. It just so happened that I had a great game, and so a lot of schools began to recruit me after watching me perform against Allen and the Northwestern team. And Michigan State was the one that came heavily after me. In fact, they were recruiting Allen and myself. And Allen and I, because we realized we were now being recruited by a lot of the same schools, we struck a friendship, and we started to compare notes with some of our visits. And we eventually agreed that we would go to the same school, that we wanted to play together, have a chance to win at the collegiate level. And we felt like that would be enhanced if we went to the same school. And we both, in fact, verbally committed to Michigan State. But as it turned out, I signed with Michigan State. Allen went to Michigan. So we went from being friends to rivals. And we weren't friends at all during those 4 years when we were in college. But eventually we became friends again. And I like Allen a great deal. But that's how things started for me with Michigan State.
Now, in your book, you go on to say that you had, obviously Michigan State courted you the hardest, but Michigan had sent you a letter, and that a while after you had already signed with Michigan State, you opened it and seen there was 2 tickets. Now, me being a Michigan fan, was there, if you would have opened that prior to signing, or prior to those tickets expiring, would there have been any chance that you would have gone to the game or considered Michigan at all?
Oh, yeah, sure. I would have considered Michigan, but I think I would have still gone to Michigan State because it ultimately came down to me wanting to play for Gus Kanakis, who's the head coach at that time. I signed with Michigan State on the strength of Gus Kanakis and his lead assistant, Vernon Payne. They both spent a great deal of time in Detroit at my home with my family, and they really recruited all of us. They recruited my family. And being that I'm not from Michigan originally, my father is, that's how we came to make our home in Michigan after my dad finished his 20-year career in the United States Air Force. But because I'm not from this area, I had never been to East Lansing, Michigan. I had never seen the campus. And yet I signed with Michigan State on the strength of my relationship with those two aforementioned gentlemen, Vernon Payne and Gus Kanakis. Now, I eventually did take a visit to East Lansing, but it was 2 weeks after I had signed my national letter to go there. So having said that, I don't think that, unless Johnny Orr and his assistants would have been just off the charts, charismatic and influential and genuine about how much they felt I could help their program, unless they just really, really far exceeded any expectations that anyone could have imagined, I don't think that it would have changed anything.
Right on. That's kind of, I was talking to AJ off here, it's kind of like a butterfly effect. A lot of things fell into place, like not opening that letter. Vernon Payne is somebody that you mention a lot in the book. He is someone that, had he steered you in any other direction, there's no 79 national championship team, because you don't go there. Magic Johnson probably does not go to Michigan State if you're not there. And this, both you could have went to Arizona State, like I believe it was Arizona State, correct?
Yes, it was. They were a very good program at the time.
And then Magic might have gone to wherever he was being recruited heavily at, and you might not see the Spartans as the juggernaut they are. Your thoughts on Vernon Payne?
Well, Vernon Payne was, first of all, Vernon Payne was a very good, excellent. He was an excellent athlete in college himself. He played on an Indiana team that won the Big Ten championship, I believe, in 1967. So he was an excellent player who had moved on into coaching. And as I said, I met him because he was recruiting me out of high school and many other athletes. But he was just charming. He was just a very nice man. You couldn't help but like him, but he was very honest with you too. And he told me he thought I could play and thought I could play right away, and thought that Michigan State would be a great fit for me. He was sort of like not a father figure, but he was sort of like you could say a father figure. I was very happy and very fortunate to have my father in my life and at home. But away from home, he was kind of an extension of that, and I trusted him, and I could talk to him about anything that was bothering me. Like I said, hard not to like, hard to say no to. If he told you he wanted you and he felt like you would be that you would be a benefit for the program, you believe that. He recruited several other players that would go on to help Michigan State win a national championship. My teammates Ron Charles and Urban Magic Johnson, and we were all recruited by Vernon Payne. And Vernon Payne was on his way out the door at Michigan State when he helped them sign Urban Magic Johnson. He signed Urban knowing that he'd never coach him. He'd never be a part of his career at Michigan State. He had already decided to leave and go coach at Wayne State University in Detroit. So he sort of did Michigan State a huge favor in helping to seal the deal on Urban before leaving. And again, he probably didn't get enough credit for his role and his impact on putting the people in place to help Michigan State and our charge to a championship.
Well, that certainly speaks to his class, to be able to knowing that you won't be there to celebrate the success, but to continue to push for it on behalf of somebody else. That definitely speaks to his class. In the book, you seem like you butt heads a lot with Judd Heathcote. I mean, I shouldn't say you butt heads a lot, but he is one of those old school hard nosed coaching style coaches. And how much did your being a part of a military family help you in that situation to be able to handle that kind of a coaching where some people might not be able to handle it? I can't remember the specific name from the book, but there was a gentleman that quit the team due to Judd Heathcote.
Well, Judd was a tough coach. He was a hard-driving, in-your-face, everyday type of motivator, and that was his style. And if you weren't used to it, then it was difficult to become used to. And I can't say that I was used to that, especially having played my first year with Gus Kanakis, who was the other extreme of that. Very effective, but just totally different in his manners of pushing and getting players to play and reach their potential. I've often said that, for the first time in my basketball career up to that point, and I'm not talking about a ton of years, but I started playing basketball on an organized level when I was 10 years old. And by the time Coach Heathcote came around, I was 19. So it was definitely tough getting used to that on a daily basis. A coach who accentuated the negative. In other words, he really harped on your weaknesses, and he didn't care too much about the things that you did well. He wanted you to be attentive to detail in terms of how you can get better on the things that you don't do so well. And every day with that can be overwhelming for sure. But having been in the military and having understood discipline and respect for authority and things of that nature, it helped me tremendously. I understood who the boss was. And I also realized that if I was going to be a part of his program and if I was going to thrive and get better, I had to work with him. Now, the one thing I can say about Coach Heathcote that I truly appreciate, always have appreciated and been thankful for, is that if you belonged out there on the court, then you were on the court. He didn't play mind games with you. He didn't mess with your playing time. He didn't punish the team to make a point to any one individual. Now, he had his ways of getting after you, for sure, as I mentioned. But when it came to putting the people out there that gave us the best chance to win, he did that every single time. I started every game I played for Judd Heathcote. Every single game that I played for him, I started because I was supposed to be out there, and the same thing with all the other people. So I think that he understood. I think that, when it was all said and done, I think Coach Heathcote learned a lot about players and young men. You're never too old to learn. And I think that I can't say he ever mellowed, but I think that, he reshaped some of his methods and some of his coaching style over the years. But for the guys that had to play for him his first 2 or 3 years, there was some days when you felt like maybe not going to practice, or I have to be honest with you. But having said all of that, and if I had to do it all over again, I certainly would not run away from playing for Judd Heathcote. He helped me to become an All-American basketball player. He helped me to become a professional basketball player. And he also pushed us all to graduate, to get our degrees, and that was important as well. So he covered all the bases.
All right. Excellent. I know you're going to downplay this a little bit, Mr. Kelser, because it's only like a short blurb in the book. You tried to kind of just sneak it by. But, and I'm a big Magic fan, but I'm sure that people bother you about Magic Johnson every day. So we're not going to do that. But I just wanted to ask you if you could kind of tell us a story about how you helped develop the hook shot in Magic's game.
Oh, I developed his hook shot?
How you helped, well, it says that in the book, where you kind of helped him develop his hook shot. Like when he went to the Lakers and he was doing that in the playoffs and stuff. And I know you're laughing, but like, they kind of, the press asked him about it.
I probably said that tongue in cheek. No, let me tell you something about Urban Johnson.
Sure.
He was a hard worker, and he was a driven player, and winning meant everything to him. So he did not mind putting in the time to make himself better I really appreciate that about him, and I admired that about him. And even when he became a professional, he was one of the best players in the league. He would always spend time in the offseason trying to add one or two elements to his game that would make him better than the year prior. And this was even after he had won a couple of championships, after he had won some MVP trophies. He was still looking to get better and better. That's just how important not resting on his accomplishments and wanting to be the very, very best. That's how important those things were to him. So he did not mind putting in the time. I feel very fortunate that that my time at Michigan State coincided with his, because how often do you get a chance to play with one of the greatest players of all time? And that's what he is. He's on that list. He's on that list of maybe the top 10 basketball players of all time, maybe even the top 5. I think that I used to take exception to people saying that he made me better, but I understand that term a lot more now than I used to, because when he went to Los Angeles, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was a 10-time All-Star and a champion. Yet when Irving got to Los Angeles, he made Kareem better. Now, if that can be said about another player that's on that very short list of all-time great basketball players, then certainly, I don't feel like maybe I need to take exception to it. He really enhanced what I did well, and who wouldn't want to play with somebody like that?
Right. Well, and that could be said about all great players, is they tend to make their entire team around them better. But going back and watching some of those clips and doing our homework on you, I noticed at least that you both made each other better. I think you both drove each other, and even as driven as he was, you guys elevated each other's game.
That was one of that was the reason why I think he envisioned and dreamed of success playing with me at Michigan State, and certainly I had those same visions when he signed with Michigan State, understanding that here's a guy that can get you the basketball at the precise time that maybe you should have it. He can take pressure off so that you don't have to do everything all by yourself. And I think he understood that I could help his game because I could go and get just about any pass that he could throw. Right. And especially his lobs, his alley-oops. I mean, I could go up there and finish the play. And so it made us both better. We complemented each other. And of course, Michigan State as a team was the beneficiary of both of our skills.
You can go ahead and say it. You gave him that hook shot. We won't blame you. I know that the narrative is that Kareem gave that to him or passed that down to him or whatever, but we know who really gave it to him. That was you back at Michigan State. So
we played a lot of horse games, and I won most of those. I won most of those, and I probably used the hook shot a couple of times to put that last letter on him.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Getting back a little more serious here, often. Back then there was no shot clock, and I didn't know that. I didn't until reading this book and stuff. I born in '83, so this is all kind of before my time. So I'm reading the book and stuff. You're fourth on the Spartans' all-time scoring list, and first still hold the rebounding record. Does it ever creep in the back of your mind, though, that had there been a shot clock where you wouldn't be able to run the 75% offense in the book, that you might still be number one? I mean, think of all that time.
Well, you know what? There was no shot clock, and there was no three-point shot.
Well, that too, yeah.
Yeah, so what? It may have added a few more points, but I remember when I was a freshman and Terry Furlow, my teammate, great teammate, fantastic player, one of the best players I ever played college ball with, and an extremely hard worker. He he set the new record in 1976, and I said then that I feel like I can break that record, and certainly I was able to do that. That was just one of the individual achievements that I had set for myself. Obviously, winning a national championship for Michigan State was the ultimate goal. But I was the leading scorer for 7 years, and I remember in Scott Skiles' first year as a freshman, and my father, we were watching a Michigan State game, and we were looking at Skiles, and my dad said that's the guy that's going to break your record, because Scott was that impressive in his first year at Michigan State, and lo and behold, he did break it. And then of course Steve Smith broke his, and then Sean Respert broke his. So I while it would be nice to still be up there, nothing takes the place of the championship. And I'm sure those three guys that are ahead of me in scoring would trade it all if they could, if they could say they won a championship for the school. Now, as far as rebound is concerned, I am second now. I'm no longer.
Oh.
Draymond.
That's right. Right.
Draymond Green passed me up by 4 rebounds.
Yeah, he's only got 4 on you. Yeah.
I kid him all the time. He beat me by 4 rebounds, but he played 30 more games.
Right.
But then, just as I say that, I have to acknowledge that I beat when I got the record, it belonged to Johnny Green, and I probably played 25 more games than Johnny Green. Johnny Green is, without a doubt, not only the best rebounder in Michigan State's basketball history, he's probably one of the best rebounders in Big Ten basketball history. So, we all have to kind of give it up and face the truth. But once again, the thing that's so important to me, and I had a lot of individual success at Michigan State, of which I'm very proud. But winning that national championship, it caps it all off. That's the crowning jewel for me, because you can go all around the basketball history, and you'll find plenty of individual achievements from some great players, but only a select few get to say that they actually won the championship, and I'm proud of that. I wish we had won 2.
Well, and to say that you beat Larry Bird doing it, I mean, that's pretty darn cool. So
that in your book, Greg, one of my favorite lines that I read, and I actually kind of chuckled out loud, was when it was written, someone asked you, "Are you glad you made Larry Bird cry?" I actually chuckled out loud reading that. I was like, and I thought about it. I was like, man, if you're that dude to do something like that, you hang your hat on that.
Right.
Larry was a tremendous player, probably the best player that I faced in college, that we had to deal with, because he was so incredibly talented, and like Urban, he was driven, had an incredible will to win, hated losing, and the only way we could even slow him down was to play him with an extra defender the entire game. We were not going to be able to stop him by guarding him man to man or with one guy. We had to make sure there was added attention applied to him, so that we could just have a chance. I mean, we sat and watched him in their semifinal game against DePaul shoot 16 for 19 and score 36 points against man-to-man defense, and we knew that we try to do that, he'd do the same thing to us. So the way we defended him showed the respect that we had for him. And even with that, Larry still managed to get 19 points, but he needed 21 shots to get there, and that's exactly what we needed to happen. And then we couldn't allow him to pile up a bunch of assists to his teammates. So we were able to cut down his passing lanes with our length, with our zone, and our extra defender on him, and ultimately win the game and give them their only loss of the season. But when people like to bring up that Larry was crying in a towel, well, there was going to be some crying that night. It was either going to be them or it was going to be us. You don't get that far and not achieve what you came there to get, and not feel it and not have your emotions just absolutely ravaged if you don't get it done. So I could empathize with him, but I'm so glad that it was not us. But had we lost that game, and especially me, I was a senior. I was the only senior on our team. So it was over for me, win or lose. And I did not want to go out without the championship.
Right. Fair enough. Now,
go ahead.
Sorry, Andy. I was going to say with the reason we kind of have you on now is because of the timing, because of March Madness and the tournament coming up. I don't know if you still follow college basketball or if you have. I mean, I have to imagine winning the championship yourself. This time of year always feels good every year since that's happened. Do you have any insights as to on the tournament this year? I mean, it's a little before Selection Sunday, and what's going to take place?
The only thing I can say about this year's tournament is probably going to be unlike any we've seen in the last 40 years, because you've got so many dominant programs, top-notch programs that A, may not even be there, and B, if they get there, they will get there barely and may not be there very long. I'm talking about North Carolina. I'm talking about Duke. I'm talking about Kentucky. And,
absolutely.
Weeks ago, I even had my alma mater, Michigan State, in that group. But I think they've emerged. I think that their impressive run over the last 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, beating number 2, number 3, number 4, they've got to be in now. They've got to be in, and because they're cresting, because they're doing what Tom Izzo teams usually do, is play their best ball come late February into March. They're doing that right now. So I think they're going to be okay. They can shock some people. But the fact that all those other programs that would always have a good shot at getting number 1 seeds in their regions and advancing all the way to the Final Four, you don't have any of that this year. So teams like Gonzaga and teams like Baylor and Big Ten teams like Michigan and Illinois and Ohio State, they're all feeling like, hey, this is our year. This is our chance. And I think that's just going to make the tournament even better because of the unpredictable nature that's involved now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Greg, I want to ask you, in the book, Lambier plays for Notre Dame, and you guys beat them pretty handily in the regional finals there. Have you ever come across Lambier after that? Broadcasting for Fox Sports Detroit and stuff, and him being a former Piston. You ever needle him a little bit?
No, that's not my style. Bill played for. Bill wasn't the only one on that Notre Dame team. They had 6 future NBA players on that team. Bill Lambier, Kelly Tripucka, Bill Hanslick, Tracy Jackson, Orlando Woolridge, and Bruce Flowers. So, they were loaded. They were absolutely loaded and had gone to the Final Four the year prior, and they lost in the first round. But, they were looking to get back, and we were looking to get there because we'd lost, we lost in the regional finals the year before. So when we met them, it was a big game for both teams, but it was especially big for us because we were the team that watched Notre Dame on television seemingly every weekend. And this was at a time when you didn't get a whole lot of national coverage, but Notre Dame seemed to be one of those programs that was just always on television. They were known throughout the country. So when we got a chance to play them on national television for the chance to get to Salt Lake City in the Final Four, we were extra juiced to make it happen. So we went out and played one of our best games of the season. Got the job done, as we like to say, and we advanced. But once I got to the NBA, there was, especially when you win, there's never any reason to gloat, to to needle anybody. Not as far as I'm concerned. I got a lot of respect for Bill. Bill went on to have an amazing professional career, two-time NBA champion. Everybody in the country knows about Bill Laimbeer, respects his game. But I see Bill. I used to see Bill all the time because we played against each other in the NBA. And then when I ended my pro career, I became a broadcaster with the Detroit Pistons. So I was there for all of Bill's success as a player with the Pistons. And then for a number of years, we were both broadcasting with the Pistons as he was doing half the schedule and I was doing the other half of the schedule. So I would see him all the time, but there was never any need to go back and talk about what happened in college. And I'm thankful that we won, and his winning had to come later at his championship days had to come later in the NBA. But there's nothing for Bill Laimbeer to be ashamed about. He had an incredible career, and he still had one as a coach.
You're absolutely right. Speaking of the Pistons, since we're kind of discussing that, I was reading the book, and you said in there when you got drafted by the Pistons that you had to be you're like, I had to be consoled by Irvin's mother. For me, and I'm speaking just as a fan. I grew up in Michigan, lived here my whole life. To me, you are synonymous with the Detroit Pistons. Watching you on TV every game and stuff. So for me to hear that, I was kind of taken back, like, whoa, because when I'm a kid, I don't think nothing of it. Like, hey, he's got his own life to live. I'm thinking Greg Kelser is, a Piston. He bleeds Piston blue. You know what I mean?
I do now. But that wasn't necessarily the case when I was in college. Now, I was a Piston fan. Don't get me wrong. Going to high school in Michigan, and I got the chance to meet Bob Lanier. I worked at his basketball camp when I was in college. The great Dave Bing. I got a chance to meet him, and I even played for a former Detroit Piston in high school when Ben Kelso, the Central Michigan great, was let go by the Pistons. He began his coaching career right at Henry Ford High School as an assistant coach. So, I used to work out at the YMCA with Don Adams, and I played in Willie Norwood's summer basketball program. These are all Detroit Piston players that I had access to from the age of 14, 15 on through all the way through college. So I was a Piston fan. But by 1978, 79, the Pistons were in a bit of turmoil. They were not one of the top programs, one of the top teams in the league. I had endured sort of a rebuilding process at Michigan State to become a winner, and I wanted to continue that at the NBA level. So with the Pistons not being in that particular stage of their reorganization, I was hoping to go to one of the better teams, sort of like my teammate Irvin Magic Johnson did. He went to the Lakers, and they were already a championship caliber team. They add him, and the rest is history. I mean, they top program for the next 12, 13, 14 years. So I kind of wanted that too. But once the Pistons drafted me, I did, I felt a little down on draft day because word had it that Seattle was also interested. And Seattle was the team that just won the championship in 1979 in the NBA. So, I look forward to probably joining them and having the opportunity to keep on winning. But things work out for a reason. And I can't be more thrilled as I look back on it that the Pistons did draft me, because it did give me a chance to start my career in my hometown. And even though I was traded eventually, when I came back and was moving into my second career, which was broadcasting, it was the same team that drafted me that opened their arms and embraced me as a broadcaster. And I've been a broadcaster for the team for the past 34 years now as a result. So, if I'm not drafted by the Pistons, then that second career probably doesn't happen. Certainly not in Detroit. but who knows if it happens at all. So, things do have a way of working themselves out in the manner in which they should, even though, we don't always see it or recognize it at, when it's forming.
Sure. Yeah, it's very interesting how things fall into place in life in hindsight when you look back at them. Go ahead, Hoffman.
Yeah.
I've got one last question for you, Mr. Kelser. Speaking of the Pistons and looking at the Pistons today, are there any kind of bright spots to look forward to for the season or anything? What kind of, can you give me some glimmers of hope or optimistic? You're such a positive person. I want something to look forward to for this season.
If you can take your eyes off the standings and the win-loss record, then you'll be fine, and you'll be able to appreciate the fact that they're developing young talent right now. They drafted 4 guys. One, unfortunately, is Killian Hayes, the point guard, who got hurt seven games in, but he's healing well. He's coming along nicely. But you got 3 other rookies, Isaiah Stewart, Sadiq Bey, Saban Lee, who are all proving that they can play in the NBA. They just need time and experience, and they'll get that. DeLon Wright is an excellent young player who has shown that he can run a team, that he can play the point and can score and can keep his turnovers down. Jeremy Grant is another young player who I think a lot of teams want Jeremy Grant, but if the Pistons determine that he's a part of the future, who wouldn't want a guy that can score 25 points a night as he's doing right now?
Right.
Mason Plumlee is providing a good basketball sense in the middle with his passing, his rebounding, and now his scoring. So, there are a lot of things that you can be optimistic about. They're building, and when you're building like this, it could take a couple of years. It could take 3 years as you continue to mold what you have, add to it as you can. And in 2 or 3 years, you look at it and you're like, oh, okay, now we're ready. Now we're ready to take our step. And that's where the Pistons are right now. So if you can appreciate, that process that sometimes has to take place when you're retooling. I know they like to call it restoring because, this team was a model franchise and has won championship. So it's not a total rebuild, it's a restoring, a restoration, and that's what they're trying to do right now. So, if you can exercise some patience and appreciate, how guys have to take it step by step, and you watch that, and you can actually see the development happening from 1 month to the next, or one season to the next, then you can enjoy it a whole lot better. Just don't worry about the wins and losses right now. It's not important.
Thank you. I just got to practice some patience. That's all. Yeah.
Well, Greg, I want to thank you for your time today and talking about your book with us, Tales from Michigan State. Like I was telling Hoffman before we came on, I read this book, and you're like a throwback to a time when athletes were role models, and they knew they were role models. You do things the right way. You're professional about the way you go about everyday life. You're just a good guy, and we appreciate you giving us your time, sir.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, and I enjoyed the journey back. And by all means, please let the people know that if they want a copy of the book, all they have to do is go to my website, GregoryKelser.com. They can order it there, GregoryKelser.com. But thank you very much. I've had a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you, Mr.
Sir.
Kelser. Have a good night.
Good night.